Okay, so today I want to make a video explaining how to play the Pokemon trading card game. And the first step is understanding how to build the deck itself. So every deck comes with, it doesn't come with, every deck has to have 60 cards in it. So this would be like a Pokemon card, right? Something like this would be a trainer card. It says trainer right there. And then energy card. These are the main three types of cards you're going to be using. In general, you want a basic deck would have like 20 of each. So 20 Pokemon, 20 trainer, 20 energy, right? So let's start with the Pokemon because that's probably the most important. Right, so each Pokemon is either going to be a basic type of Pokemon, right? Up there you can see it says basic, or it's going to be some kind of stage, right? This one says stage 1, right? So what that means is the basic Pokemon will evolve into the next stage. So for example, if I'm using Eevee, right? And then in my hand, I have Flareon, and Eevee's like on my bench. Let's say this is the bench. On one of my turns, not the first turn, but on one of my turns, if I have this in my hand, I can go ahead and put this on top of this card. Now this Pokemon is evolved. Right? I don't need a special card to evolve it. I just put it on top. I can do that for as many as I have on my bench. Like, for example, if I also had this other Flareon and this Eevee on the bench at the same time, and it was my following turn, I can go ahead and evolve both. Right, that's perfectly fine. Right, the reason you usually want to evolve a Pokemon is because the evolved is stronger, right? And then they have more health and stuff like that. So let's take a closer look at this specific card and how it works so we can know all the pieces of it and what's going on. It's a basic card right there, basic. It's Eevee. It has 60 hit points right there. That means it can take up to 60 damage before it's knocked out. It's a normal type, or colorless type they call it in the Pokemon card game. That means it doesn't have any specific type of energy. It has an ability, so this is unique to this type of card. It has an ability, so the way the ability works is you just read it, and it does what it says. So when I attach an energy card to this Pokemon during my turn, I can search for a card that evolves from this Pokemon on the same turn, and then put onto this Pokemon and evolve it. So when I attach a fire energy, right, to this card on my turn, I can go ahead and search my deck, look for Flareon, go ahead and evolve it. So that's very nice. It makes it very quick to evolve. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing. This one works a little different. As you can see, it doesn't have that same ability, but it's still an Eevee, it's still basic, it still turns into Flareon. So this one has two, we'll say they're called attacks, right? That's what I call them here. Even though this is like not an attack, it's more of like an ability, but it's not an ability, it's more like an attack. So that means this would be one of the last thing, or this would be the last thing you would do on your turn is attack. We'll get into that later. But it needs an energy type, right? So since it's colorless, it accepts any energy. So that's perfectly fine. I can just put a fire energy on there, and then I can use this attack. Now if I want to use bite, it does 30 damage, but I need 3 energy on there. So after 3 turns, because I can only put 1 energy each turn, only after that 3rd turn, I can use that attack. As you can see, that takes way too long. You're probably never going to use this attack that way, unless you can find some other way of putting energy faster through some kind of ability or something. but that's what those mean. Since it's colorless, it takes any energy. So colorless Pokemon tend to be the easiest type of Pokemon to use because they don't care what kind of energy they take. Now on the other hand, fire. Okay, so fire type, they usually tend to want fire energy, right? This Pokemon in particular, most of its attacks don't really need any special type of energy, so any energy will do fine. But this second attack, Heat Tackle, so that's 90 damage. This Pokemon takes 10 damage in return, but it also needs at least one of those energies to be fire. And you can see its weakness down there is water. So if any water attack happens to it, it takes double damage. It has no resistances, so it doesn't resist any specific type. So if you're attacking a Pokemon, eventually it's going to get knocked out, and we'll go over what to do when that happens. But in general, you want to build your deck around getting to something so that you can win, right? Either by knocking out all of your opponent's Pokemon, or winning some other way. Like the only other way to win is like when your opponent doesn't have any Pokemon left, or you've already taken up all of your prize cards. So however you do that is how you win. There's not any other real ways I know of winning other than the opponent cannot play any more Pokemon, or you've taken up all 6 of your prize cards. So we'll get to that in a bit. So those are Pokemon, right? You can play a basic Pokemon. They can go on your bench. We'll go over the bench and stuff a little bit later. But these are like what's gonna help you win, right? So Eevee goes into Flareon, so it makes sense that they're in the same deck, right? So that makes sense. Now sometimes you just want a strong basic Pokemon. Right? Strong basic Pokemon are very good to have, and you'll see this is an EX Pokemon. Right? EX means a couple of things. One, it's like stronger than normal, and two, sometimes they have a special attack that uses your EX. Right? So you get one of these per game, and if your attack says like something. You can only use this attack, it usually says EX or GX or something on there. You can only do it once per game, and that's it, period. And then people have cards like this, or coins like this, and then they just flip them over when they do their EX. This one doesn't have that. And the second thing is then when this card gets knocked out, it counts for 2 prize cards instead of just 1. Right? A normal Pokemon like this doesn't say EX. That'll just be 1 prize card, but this is worth 2. So it's like a trade-off. This is a very strong Pokemon, but at the same time, it's gives your opponent twice as many prize cards, so they can win faster. Same rules apply. It has 2 attacks. One does 30 damage. One does 80 plus. And this one does have a resistance. It has minus 20 to fighting, so that's nice to have. But the same rules apply. Like, you play the card, you put energy on it once per turn, unless there's something special you're doing that lets you apply more than 1 energy, either through a card or an ability or something like that. Normally it's once. So these are nice to have too because they're basic Pokemon, right? EX Pokemon tend to be basic unless it says like stage 1 or something. But most of them tend to be basic, so they're very nice to have. And then I just have the rest of the cards here. They're just more fire types. And again, don't be confused if like one of this one's like white, right? So this is colorless. And this one evolves into a fire, right? So you can see if you're ever confused about, hey, what a Pokemon evolves into what? This top little thing up here says evolves from Fletchling. So Fletchling looks like that. So any Fletchling, no matter if they're fire or not, will evolve into this card Fletchinder. So this one is just a normal Fletchling, so that's perfectly fine. This one evolves into this one. And then this one goes into this one. This is Talonflame. This is a stage 2. So this one goes from Fletchinder. It says right there. So that one goes into this one. Right? And you can only do that once per turn. You can evolve it. Like, for example, if I had Fletchling on my bench, and then I had Fletchinder, on the turn after I put this on my bench, I can go ahead and evolve it. And then the following turn, I can evolve it again if I have this card in my hand. I can't just say, well, I have both and I'm going to put both. You can't do that unless you have some kind of card that says evolve this Pokemon to whatever. Unless you have a card that actually says it on the card, then you can't do it. You can only do it once per turn. Okay, same thing with energy. You can only put one energy per turn. Alright, so these are all these cards. So we're going to put these to the side now. So all those Pokemon are there just to, hey, I'm going to attack and win. Because I'm going to knock out 6 Pokemon and then I'll win. Right? Energy is very simple. They just look like this. They'll say energy and they have what it is. It's pretty simple. I don't need to go too far into that. 20 of those. Alright, trainer cards. These are a little bit more advanced because this takes a lot of reading. Right, most card games are reading. So we'll go with something simple. Right, Hop. Right, extremely simple card, but we're going to go over how it works. This is a trainer card. You can see at the top says trainer. The name of the trainer is Hop. That's him. He's a supporter. Right at the top right you can see. So supporter is specific because it says right here, you can only play one supporter card during your turn. So if I have 2 Hops in my hand, I can only play one of them. And then I'll have to wait to the next turn to play the other one. Right, so supporter cards are really nice, and they tend to have very strong effects, but the downside is you can only play one of them per turn. Right, so drawing 3 cards, that's really nice. So that's great. Another card, this is a little bit more advanced. Right, this is Ninja Boy. This is one of my favorite cards to use, especially when you have a lot of strong basic Pokemon in your deck. Right, so you just do what it says. Right, it says choose one of your basic Pokemon in play, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, switch it with that Pokemon. Any attached cards, damage counter, special conditions, turns in play, and other effects remain on the new Pokemon. Shuffle the first Pokemon into your deck. So that's great. So let's say I have Eevee. Right? Eevee's out. He's in our active Pokemon. He's our active Pokemon. And I have, I don't know, Talonflame. I have Fletchinder in my hand. Right? So Eevee doesn't evolve into Fletchinder. That doesn't work. I need to make this one into Fletchling. So if I play Ninja Boy, so okay, I'm playing Ninja Boy, and then I switch out Eevee, and then I find Fletchling. Great. Now I can play my Fletchinder. Great. Awesome. Right, that's what Ninja Boy can do. Or, on the other hand, let's say I know for sure, or I want to check if Moltres is in my deck. Same thing applies, right? I play my Ninja Boy. It says I can switch one of my basic Pokemon with another one. So, okay, forget Fletchling because he's weak, and I want Moltres out. Great, I can totally do that too because both Pokemon are basic. It says right there. So that's what support cards are for. They can do things that you can't normally do. And your other type of trainer card is going to be your item card. So let's take a look at these guys. And we'll do one of these. This is one of the most used ones. Professor's Letter. Right, so this one says, search your deck for 2 basic energy, reveal them, show them to your opponent, put them in your hand, shuffle your deck after. So that just lets you, let's say you don't have any energy in your hand, but you have that card. Great, now you have 2 energy. Bam, now you can play an energy card, and this guy gets an energy. Perfect. That's one of the most useful cards to have, because not only does it give you energy, it's an item card. So item cards have no limit of how many you can play. Right? You can play as many items as you can before you attack. Right? So if I had 4 of them, you can have 4 of any copy card in your deck. If I have 4 of them, I can play all 4 and I can pull all my energy cards into my hand. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can if you want to. Another type of item is, like, I call them like equip cards, because this is going to equip to the Pokemon. So Pokemon tool. So you can attach one tool to your Pokemon that doesn't already have a Pokemon tool attached to it. So this one, any damage done to this card is reduced by 20. So when I play this card, I just put it on the side, and there you go. Okay, so now I have this card, so it lets my opponent know I have this card on there, and then when I'm playing, and when they attack me, it's minus 20. And sometimes there are other cards that take away your Pokemon tools and stuff like that, just to be aware of that. But this is an okay card to have. It's not great, but like, it's better than a lot of other cards, because at least you'll have minus 20 damage each turn, and each time you take damage. Okay, another type of card that's really good to have are Pokeball cards, right? Pokeball cards are items. This happens to be a great ball. What this one does, I take a look at the top 7 cards. If there's a Pokemon there, any Pokemon, I can put it into my hand and show my opponent what card it is, then put it into my hand, and then shuffle my deck. A better card to use instead of Great Ball would be Ultra Ball, because Ultra Ball lets you search through your whole deck to find any Pokemon. So I would prefer using Ultra Balls, but Great Ball will do in a pinch. The one you do not want to use is just Pokeball, because Pokeball makes you flip a coin, and that leaves too much to chance. You really don't want to do that when you're playing, because there's already enough chance to begin with. You don't need any more. You don't need to introduce more chance. Okay, so again, all the cards are, you just read what they say and you do what it says. And if it's an item, you play it once. You can play as many as you want. And if it's a trainer or a supporter, if it's a supporter, once per turn. Okay, so attacking, right? This is the last thing you do on your turn, right? You say, let's say I want to do Destructive Flame. So I'm going to need 2 energy. So this is probably like on my second turn. And then I say, okay, I'm using Destructive Flame. So that's 30 damage to whatever my opponent has. And then I flip a coin. It says flip a coin. If heads, discard an energy attached to the defending Pokemon. So if the defending Pokemon, let's see, that one has any energy. Okay. I flip my little coin. And then, okay, bam. Tails. Doesn't work. Okay, so they just take 30 damage. Now when you're doing damage, most little Pokemon kits come with little things like this. I don't recommend you use these, because you're going to have these little dot things everywhere. They're going to get lost, and no, they're bad. What I recommend is using some kind of dice, right? So I have these, and you just treat each dot like it's 10, right? So if this is 30 damage, 30 right there, 3. Now I can see the whole time how much damage this card has in it. And an easier way when you're doing this kind of stuff, you usually want to add up instead of subtracting, because it's going to be harder for you to do like on the fly to subtract. So if I'm adding up, I just need, if this gets up to 6, right, that's 60 damage. So done. Since its health is 60, it's dead. So now it goes away, it goes into the discard pile, and they need to put a new Pokemon from their bench onto their active spot. and I'll get into that in a minute. So that's the deck, and that's how like damage works. And this is attacking is the last thing you do on your turn. Then it's the next person's turn. So I'm gonna pause here, real quick. I'm gonna set it up like if I was actually gonna play, and I'll go over each step of a turn and how to do that. Okay, so what I've done is I've put all the cards into a deck like that, and then I shuffled them, and this is like if I was gonna begin a game, right? So let's say I'm going first. The first thing you do, both players draw 7 cards, right? This is gonna be your hand, right? And in your hand, what you're looking for is at least one basic Pokemon. So I already have one. I have Moltres right there. Infernape is not one. Chimchar is one as well. So he's a basic. And then I have a supporter card and 2 energies. Pretty good hand, actually, for this deck. So, great. What you want, you pick the one that you want to start with. So I want to start with Moltres here. And you put them in the active spots. And so the active Pokemon, put them upside down, because you don't really want to show your opponent what you're playing first, because if they can counter it, then they will. And then I also have another basic Pokemon, Chimchar. He's going to go on the bench, so that way if this Pokemon gets knocked out, this one is going to be able to take its spot. Right, and then the rest I cannot play, so great. So this is going to be my hand going forward. And now, what do I do next? So the next thing, when both players have a spot on the active, you can start, right? Both players don't need to have anything on the bench. That's just an option. It's just like for safety. Now I'm going to go to my prize cards. So there's 6 slots here. So I just draw from my deck upside down 6 cards. I can't see what these are. These are prize cards. We'll go over what they mean in a minute. Okay, so these are just 6 cards from my deck that I had right there. From there. That deck right there. So they're gonna remain there. So now when the game begins, right, flip over your Pokemon, flip over your bench. Okay, the game has started now. Right, at the beginning of your turn, I'm pretty sure other than the first turn, you draw. But let's say I'm wrong and you draw. So from your deck, you're going to draw 1 card. Okay, and now your turn begins. The only thing you cannot do on your first turn is attack. Right, so I can go ahead and plop an energy right there. I can only put 1 energy, right? That doesn't mean I can put 1 to each. It means I can pick 1 and put it. Now if I want to, I can play N, right? Or I can play my professor's letter, but I'm not going to do that. Right, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, your turn. And then they do their thing. They can attack. So if they have an energy and their Pokemon only needs 1 energy to attack, go right ahead, right? Attack. And then I take my damage, and then next turn happens, right? So let's say my Pokemon gets knocked out, right? It's taken so much damage, right? There's all kinds of damage on this thing, and it's dead. So when it's dead, since this was an EX Pokemon, they take 2 cards, and then I put this in my discard pile. Any card I'm using, or any Pokemon that is knocked out, goes in the discard pile. That's right underneath your deck spot right there. So then the new card comes active. So now this is the active Pokemon. If this is all I had, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose, because this thing is very weak and I can't really take any attacks or anything like that. So I would need to use my cards to make my position more advantageous so I can win. Right? That's the whole point of building your deck. When you're playing, if you're finding yourself like, man, I wish I had Pokemon's letter, or man, I wish I was able to shuffle my cards, or man, I wish I had more Pokemon that evolve, or I wish I didn't take so many turns to evolve my Pokemon, then those are things to consider when you're building your deck for the next time you play. right? So things that are you're running into issues are things that are go back into your deck building. So let's say I knocked out one of their Pokemon. I get to pick a prize card, so I just pick one. Okay, great. This is Hop. And that just gets added to my hand now. So my prize card gets added to my hand, I can play it. I can use it. Right, since you attack at the end of your turn, I'm not going to be able to use that card right away. I'll have to wait until my next turn, but it's adding a card to my hand. So when you're winning, it's pretty good because it's like you're winning more as you play because you're going to use up all your prize cards. And then let's say it's the end, right? Let's say I've taken all of them and then I attack one more time and I win and I take the last prize card. So no matter how many Pokemon they have on their side, I win because I've taken all my prize cards. There's none left. I have won, right? At the same time, let's say they attack me, and I don't have any cards active or on my bench. I lose. They don't have to take all their prize cards to win, right? So you can win either by knocking out all of your opponent's Pokemon and they can't play anything else, or you take all your prize cards and you win that way. Most of the time, it's going to be with prize cards, right? Because if you make your deck with 20 Pokemon, you're usually going to have something on your bench to play. If not, again, that's another, hey, I need to take a look at my deck to make sure it's built correctly and so I can actually play. But in general, if you have 20 cards for Pokemon, 20 cards for energy, 20 trainer cards, it'll usually be fair enough, right? The amounts of like, hey, do I really want, so many Pokemon that evolve in my deck? That can be an issue. Or maybe I don't have enough of this copies of this specific card. You can have 4 copies of a card. Other than energy, you can have as many as you want of energy. Right, so that's how you play this game. Right, you're reading the card, doing what it says. Most of the time, you're like flipping a coin or something, and then just doing what the card says. That's how most card games are like that. Read what the card says, do what it says. Now, special stuff. Let's go into special stuff. So that you already know how to play the game basically. This is more situational stuff from now on. So if you want to stop watching here, you should have enough knowledge right now to actually play this game, right? It should be enough. You should be able to play. Now, here's special stuff, right? This is stuff that doesn't happen super often, right? So these are conditions, special conditions. A lot of game mats have the conditions on there, so I'm going to go over them. Right, so we have, just for the video, let me keep it sideways so it's easy to watch the video. Special conditions. So these are usually from attacks. Like an attack will say, this Pokemon is now asleep, or the opponent's Pokemon is now asleep. Right, so the Pokemon that's asleep, it can't attack or retreat. So let's go over what that means. Retreating. Each Pokemon has a retreat cost at the bottom right here. So this costs 1 energy to retreat. So if there's no energy on this Pokemon, it cannot retreat. Okay, so if I did, I would discard an energy to my discard pile, retreat. So that means it goes back on the bench, and a new Pokemon takes its place, whichever is on my bench. Right, that's not something you do super often, but you can. Now, if it's asleep, I can't remember if it's this way or this way, but just turn it to the side to show that it's asleep, and then you flip a coin. Right, so Pokemon's asleep, and my little coin. On each player's turn, you flip a coin. So when my turn begins, or at the end of the opponent's turn, flip the coin. Tails, it's still asleep. Now when they do whatever they're gonna do at the end of my turn, go ahead, flip. It's still asleep. I have really bad luck with coin flips. That's why I don't like giving stuff to chance, stuff that needs coin flips, because I usually have bad luck with that. Okay, burned. Right, I don't have a burn thing, but we'll say this is the burn one. It usually has a fire in the middle. You can use whatever. So something that's burned. So just put the thing there. And what's it say? Put a burn marker. Flip a coin of tails. 2 damage. 2 damage counters. So flip a coin. And that's heads. Great. Okay, nothing happened. So let's say it was tails. So now I take 2 damage. So I get my little die. There's a 2. I've taken 2 damage because of this burn. Right, there are certain cards that can heal your status conditions. Another way to heal a status condition is to evolve a Pokemon. Right, so if you evolve a Pokemon, status condition goes away. So that's nice. So again, that's a special thing. That's like you're not going to run into it very often, but that's how that works. The damage stays though. So when you evolve, your damage doesn't go away. You just have more health, so it's better to evolve. And your status condition goes away, so that's nice too. Okay, confused. Say confused is the other way. I'm pretty sure sleep is this way and confused is the other way, but I can't remember. Confused, you flip a coin when you're about to attack. So let's say I want to use Peck. Like, okay, Peck. And then I have to flip a coin, and it has to be heads for the attack to work. Now, if it's tails, then I essentially attack myself, but instead of taking the full damage of the attack, instead I get 3 damage counters. So it costs me 30 health for a missed attack when I'm confused. Paralyzed, the Pokemon, it's like if it's asleep, it can't move. But at the end of the turn, so I'm paralyzed because they attacked me. Now when it's their turn, my Pokemon comes back healthy, so it's healthy. Okay, and then poisoned, that's this one. Poison, they take 1 damage every turn, so they take 1 damage every turn. Okay. Yeah, and then every turn means like your turn is them, my turn is mine. It's not every my turn, it's every turn. Right, so I'm like, okay, I'm done with my turn. Now it's their turn. I'm going to put another damage. Okay, now it's my turn again. Another damage. Right, that's how that works. So most of the time you don't want to have status conditions on your Pokemon because it's bad. So evolving it or using a specific card that says, hey, this card removes status conditions or remove all status conditions. Something like that will prevent that. Okay, anything else that's special? Nothing that I really want to go into. There is other special stuff, but nothing that's super important. So with that knowledge there, you should be able to play the game and know. Oh, one last thing, the stadium. That's what I wanted to go over. Most decks don't play stadium cards because they're a little clunky, but they can be useful for some cards, for some decks. So stadium card. So let's say I drew this card. This is a stadium card. It says stadium right at the top. So a stadium card affects the whole everybody. Right, so it says each player can have 8 Pokemon on their bench. Normally you can have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's usually how many fit, right, on the bench, like normally. But with this one I can have 8. Each stadium card has its own special thing that it does. It's just like, these are the extra rules now when you're playing. Right, so how this works, like where did I put it? You can put it, usually I see it like here, or on this side, here, right? So that way both players can see it, because it affects both players. Both players are gonna either benefit or have a negative from the stadium. Usually you want it to be a benefit for you and a negative for your opponent, right? So if they're playing cards that are different than yours, your stadium, you usually want your stadium card to help your cards out and like hurt your opponent. So that's how stadium cards work. It's very rare to use stadium. It's not really used very often, but they do exist. What else? Like Mega Evolutions is another one, but I'm not going to go into that because those are just clunky stuff. I don't want to pull out those cards. What I've gone over so far should be enough, right? 20 of these guys, 20 Pokemon. You usually want them to evolve because they get strong, because otherwise you're left with little puny guys with puny attack. You want the big boys, right, with big boy attack like that or more. And you want to use those attacks to knock out your opponent. And you do 20 energy, right? You want 1 energy per turn. You can add it to whichever Pokemon you want. But make sure you can always pay the cost on the attack. Right, so you could do that. I think that's it. Right, I think that's all I really want to go over. I know it's a good bit, but you can like replay it over and focus on the stuff that you need to. And hopefully you have some fun. This game, I will say, it does take a minute to learn, so just be patient with it. Just read the cards and do what they say, and if you're having fun. It does take a minute. It takes a while to get through a game and to build a deck and stuff like that. For me, it usually takes me half an hour to an hour to like go through all my cards and build like a deck when I'm playing with my son. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And I would say put some music on when you're playing, and take some breaks between turns and stuff, because it can get a little long. So this is like you sitting down to play. It's not going to take 5 minutes. In real life, yeah, it'll take like 5 minutes to lose or win. That's how usually you want your deck to be. But when you're playing with little ones, and the cards that you have available, if they're just the ones you bought in the store, you didn't specifically buy, like all your cards and stuff, it's gonna take a while. All right, but yeah, there you go.